Hey Tim, can you hear us here at Brookins?
Yes, I can.
You talking now?
Oh, did you respond?
Yes, I did. I can hear you.
Okay, we're not hearing you. Hold on just a second.
Very good. How about now? Laura, why don't you try saying something in case it's me?
I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
I can.
Tim, can you try again?
Is this better?
Oh, there we go.
Very good.
Well, I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. I believe it's 6:33. So secretary could call the roll.
Burnett,
Here.
Carter, Cowart, Neal,
Here.
Smeltzer, Thorsland, Wilson,
Here.
Conrady.
Sorry. All should have the agenda and seen the packet and the emails. Does anyone have any amendments, changes, additions, subtractions? If there aren't any, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda. Thorsland and Wilson. Thank you. Minutes. Sorry. All those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. That's where my brain's at today, folks. Sorry about that. Minutes. Anyone have any changes to the minutes? Any edits? I only had one, and that was my name was misspelled in the last line, so just forgot the Y on the end of it. Under adjournment. Thank you. Anyone else see anything? I'd take a motion to approve the agenda as amended, or not the agenda, the minutes as amended. Smeltzer, looking for a second. Neal, all those in favor? Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I don't have any slips for public participation. Anyone have anything? All right. Communications. Mike just mentioned I've had conversations with the Illinois Broadband Lab and the Office of Broadband, both talking about easements and stuff over the past couple of weeks. So interested in what Champaign County's doing. I'm speaking, I believe it's Broadband Lab, their BEAD webinar tomorrow as well. So a few things out there. Does anyone else have any communications that's been brought forward? Okay. All right, on to new business. Our Volo proposals. Everyone should have seen them and hopefully looked at them. And I would call, I don't know if it's Peter or Jason who's going to lay this out for us tonight, but I will turn it over to them.
Howdy, everybody. Thank you for having us back. Tim has a kind of higher level version of what I sent to you guys, a little bit fewer numbers, hopefully better pictures, and we'll go from there. So this is our more or less our update and summary of the proposals that we came up with for additional deployment, and we'll kind of give a very brief background and then summary of those. Tim, do you want to go to the next one? Here we go. So can you guys see these versions of the maps? I guess you can, except Bailey. So I redid these maps with some hints from Mike to try and hopefully make them a little bit more clear. So the original scope, as you know, there were two partners. There was Nextlink. Nextlink's portion of the county was the upper third and roughly the lower, maybe quarter or fifth of the county. There were other areas that are not in the expected project region due to RDOF. Those are the areas that have no color in them. And the pockmarks there are all of the locations that were identified in one round of the location mapping that did not have access to wireline broadband at 100 megabits or faster. Nextlink previously had a federal mandate to provide service in the non-covered areas. And so we divided it up this way. Go ahead next, Tim. Many of those locations, unfortunately, are no longer eligible due to the fixed wireless coverage that advertises at least 100 megabit down and 20 megabit up. And go ahead to the next slide. Our region was the central portion. There were 836 premises in that portion that were believed to not have access to wireline broadband. You'll note some overlap there, but I couldn't quite figure out whose map was right. So there's a little overlap. The eligibility was non-RDOF, the eligibility criteria was non-RDOF and unserved or underserved for wireline broadband at least 100 megabits. And that was the original criteria that this task force specified for eligibility for grant funding. And our area was roughly the central half of Champaign County. And with as we went through the process with the State Office of Broadband, we actually found that instead of 1,836, that actual number was 2,262. So in the final round 3 numbers, it was 2,262. Go ahead next, Tim. So we proposed to the state our phase 1 backbone, which is depicted in kind of purplish there. And you can see the green dots along it are the premises along that path that would get service. There are 576 premises along that path. There's a whole bunch of parcels that do not have houses on them. And I'll say that over the course of the next few decades, probably a lot of that area will get developed because Champaign County does seem to develop little enclaves along out in the farming area. The backbone is about 120 miles long. It's funded and underway. We plan to have it complete by the end of 2025. It's been a fun process so far, but we do not yet have shovels in the ground because it froze. So we were hoping to get stuff in November, but it looks like it'll be probably March when we start actually digging. But it's not going to impact the end date at this point. Okay, next. So our phase 2, the original plan was for BEAD we would apply to the state of Illinois for their Connect Illinois Round 4, which got funds from the federal BEAD program. And we expected that to provide for all 1,728 remaining premises in Volo's kind of section of the county. Next slide. But times and circumstances change, and due to the fixed wireless, a lot of those premises became ineligible for BEAD. That's the remaining premises are 1,088 premises, and those are the blue dots in that picture. The red dots are the ones that became ineligible. Then with Nextlink exiting the process, it was no longer just our footprint. Unfortunately, most of their area is not BEAD eligible. There's just a few, 400 is no small number, but 418 premises in Nextlink's area that are BEAD eligible. So we've kind of added that to our BEAD plan. Next, Tim. So the new plan is phase 2A will be county and Volo funds for BEAD ineligible locations. I say areas, but it's really locations. BEAD is like a pinpoint accurate, well, maybe not a pinpoint, but pretty big sledgehammer accurate location by location funding mechanism. And then phase 2B is BEAD funds for BEAD eligible locations. Go ahead, next, Tim. So this meeting is really mostly about 2A. So we developed 2 options. It's hard to get the colors right on something like this, but this one shows both options together on the same paper. The unfortunately reality of money is that we will not get all of those locations lit. Option 1 is the orange and the yellow, so basically the bottom portion and part of the top portion. Option 2, the goal of option one was basically maximize the number of premises that we could hook up, and that meant building off of the existing backbone using the existing plans. It reduces the backbone cost, and it reduces the distribution cost because the distances are all somewhat shorter. Option two was maximize future expandability, specifically in the previously next link designated areas. And what that necessitated was an extension of the backbone. Now, backbone is a lot more expensive than distribution fiber, and so the number of premises goes down. But it is, well, we'll talk about the pros and cons of it in a future slide. Go ahead next, Tim. So for 2A option one, total cost is 7.1 million. Of that, the county is 4.7 million. We are the rest. It's 935 premises. It's the orange dots and the yellow dots. And it's about 180 miles of distribution fiber infrastructure. Go ahead to the next one, Tim. Option two is a little less expensive because it's a little fewer premises. The number of the dollars per premise that Volo is putting in is basically based on ROI, and we have to be able to run this thing afterwards. So we can only invest a certain amount of money per location. So with the number of premises going down, the total dollar amount goes down, the total distance goes down, but very critically, 36 miles of backbone is something that would be a challenge for us to put in a future phase. So I like both of these options. I think they're both they both have a lot of technical merit. If we could do both, it would be great, but we can't. So we have to choose whether we're going to focus on making future expandability better in the northern area or maximizing the number of premises that we can hit. Next slide, Tim. So this is, I tried to put together what it would look like if all of our plans came to fruition in option one versus if all of our plans came to fruition in option two. Not all of our plans, but all of the grant funded expansion. So as you can see in option one, there's the orange area is kind of infilled, and that's nice. In option two, there's a lot more in the upper portion, and the dark red portion is built for expansion. In option one, it would be somewhat hard to continue extending that north. We would have to build off a new backbone off of probably Route 45 where we have existing infrastructure, and we would build off from there. Option two does make it easier to build out that area to the northeast specifically, and otherwise to the north. In the south, I'm not so worried about build out because, as you can see, our phase one backbone already comes pretty close to the southern area there. So we would not need an additional backbone to build out that area. There would be some spurs to serve the kind of the corners, but for the most part, the backbone in the south is okay. Next, Tim. If we're trying to kind of analyze the advantages and pros and cons, option one has 42% more premises covered. The cost to the county is the same. That's a significant number, but it's not, it's not everything. That also gives the project more funds. As we've said before, we're going to continue to dedicate funds to building out. We're going to dedicate at least 50% of the revenues from our build out, our grant funded build outs to future build outs. But that timeline is still pretty long using organic growth. Option two brings expensive backbone deeper into the rural areas of Champaign County. That means that future build out, which we can do more on a kind of a small business model for a little less money than we would do with grant funded infrastructure. That is now more of the county, basically just about the whole county is now within reach of one of the backbone legs at that point. So that's an important advantage, and I again, I would have trouble advising you one way or other on this. To me, I've tried to make them both good options, and I, as far as I can tell, I have. The other thing to note is that this tranche of funds was originally dedicated to the northern and southern areas of the county. And so if you want to make sure to kind of spread the funds equally, this would be the best way to do that. Option 2. Next, Tim. This is basically just, our ongoing commitment to work with you guys and continue this process as long as we can. That is the end of my presentation, and I'm happy to take questions or expand on any of those details if I can help with this decision process at all.
Thank you, Peter. Does anyone have any questions? Mike, I knew you would, so go for it.
Peter, as you look forward to what might be phase 3, I guess, or 4, depending on how you count, do you believe there will be BEAD funding available from the state, maybe in the 2026 timeframe?
Beyond what's listed on that map, I don't believe there will be anything eligible for BEAD funding. I don't even know if we'll get all of the BEAD funding that we were hoping for with the kind of winds of politics. So that's my best crystal ball on BEAD. Because BEAD, I think, is in Champaign County, those are the only premises that are BEAD eligible.
Right. But you were planning on, when we look at just the Volo areas, you were going to use the ARPA funding and your own funding to get the backbone built and get that in, and then hopefully come back with the BEAD plan later on, which was a bigger ticket item.
Correct. Which is still, that's what we're calling phase 2B.
Okay.
And that's the light blue dots there. So I do believe there will, well, I'm hopeful that there will be funding for the teal dots.
Okay.
You said 2026. I'm kind of imagining it'll be 2025. I'm hoping it'll be 2025,
Yeah.
but I guess I could be wrong. There's a fairly intricate process of actually awarding those funds, so it may well take until 2026.
And the amount of funds that, or the size of the project that could be your 2B is somewhat limited by the fact that the state wants a 25% match and you only have so much money.
Yeah, it's going to be a challenge, that one. I would welcome partners. We're talking with UCDB and we're talking with some other people, and if the county wanted to be involved in that, we'd love to be have them involved in it. But I do believe we'll be able to put that one together. But beyond that, there's a lot of space that won't be covered.
Right. And in one of your projections, you thought that just organically growing this, reinvesting half of your revenues and so forth, it could drag this out till 2044?
Yes.
Okay.
I was sad about that number.
I think everyone in the room is saddened by that number. What if, and then there are county board members present and maybe listening, the county board said, okay, that's not acceptable. And because we don't believe it's acceptable, we're going to find another 3 million, another 4 million of county funds to apply to this so that you can multiply that times 4 essentially with BEAD funding and get it all done, or at least get a bigger chunk of it done so it will grow more fast. That would, $3 million would turn into $12 million, which chops 10 years off your timeline.
Except the BEAD funding is limited to those blue dots. We can't add dots for
Right.
BEAD. So the county funding would allow us to dedicate Volo's resources to just ballpark. I would guess that with additional county funding to the tune of 3 million and Volo putting in Volo's funds that we would normally be planning to put in for BEAD, we would probably get the red, the yellow, and the orange areas, just ballparking.
Okay.
which is significant. That's, I think, 572 maybe
Okay.
ish locations.
So ultimately, I believe that the question of which is better for option one or option two, which is why we're here tonight, the real answer to that may depend on what the county board feels the chances are that it will come up with additional funding at some point.
Sure, yeah.
And if the county board looks into its gazing ball and says, okay, we've got 2 years to figure this out, or a year and a half to figure this out, how do we come up with $3 million? There's probably not going to be another ARPA, and things change, but the opportunity to leverage our funds 3-to-1, 4-to-1, depending on how you look at 3-to-1 at least, we're right on the edge of it now, and it's probably not coming back.
So I think, I don't think the option to leverage them will depend on what the state wants to do after BEAD. With the BEAD leverage, the county would definitely be leveraging their funds 4-to-1. But then that would leave the other areas that are not BEAD eligible basically unleveraged.
Right.
And I don't know what the landscape will look like post BEAD with funding sources. I know that the USDA has done things in the future, but I also kind of feel like after BEAD, people may be like, all right, well, we've solved this problem, until they figure out that they haven't. I definitely think that there is an opportunity to continue the growth, and if the county sees this as a critical issue to continue, then we should continue working towards it. But I don't see any immediate ability to leverage those funds beyond BEAD.
Right.
And I don't like giving that answer, but
No, I mean, I agree. Both of your proposals have their benefits, and perhaps they're not drawbacks, but they just have different benefits. In a not a very good analogy, but let's say we were the road commissioner and we were starting building roads in Champaign County and we had nothing. Well, we'd build the big roads first and then build the littler roads and then the driveways. And what you're talking about doing up in the northwest section there is basically building the big roads, and that's the hard part. And then the littler roads and the less expensive stuff, that's going to be easier to leverage or figure out at some point down the line.
yeah, and in some rural areas, the farmer builds a road, and then the state comes in or the county comes in and says, it's a nice road. How about we buy that road from you and now we'll maintain it. It's also similar to that in some of these areas where people are within a spitting distance of the backbone, but still, tens of thousands of dollars, it'll become a neighborhood initiative. And I mean, we've been doing that for the last several years. It's been successful. It's just not quite what we wanted for the whole county. We were hoping to have more eligible blue dots on there.
Thank you.
So, oh,
You'd asked on the side, so.
yeah, Mike asked a lot of my questions, the perspective of future funding and things. From the county board perspective as a member, and I'm only speaking as one member, Mike didn't watch any of the budget hearings, I can tell. I think it would be unlikely we would find $3 million to extend this as much as we want to do this. We have actually a deficit this year in our budget. And with the failure of the PSST, the public safety sales tax, passing, some of the burden of those things is going to fall on the general fund, which is where we would dig something like this out. Mike's analogy about the roads is a good one. I was leaning towards the option 2 for the exactly what you're saying. We come in and we put in the hard stuff and hope that we can somehow make that whole, and then that becomes sort of an attractive target for smaller projects to try to get connected to it. You know, I can see it, it's so close, that they try to come through. I don't envision an infrastructure bill or any ARPA-like things. I don't know what's going to happen with, you know, federal grant money for this in the next 4 years. I think we're going to see a big lack of that. I think it's going to be mostly organic funds, you know, slow. It's a terrible date, you know, 2044. Somebody's going to call up the county or email us or say, you promised us that we were going to have fiber, and they don't. But, you know, we could be surprised. I'd be very happy if we were surprised. And if the county board really wanted to finish this as much as possible, to dig up a part of, you know, another $3 million. But I wouldn't start putting any pencils on paper yet for that. So, but I lean towards option 2 because of that backbone getting in and giving us sort of points that we can come from. I think that's it hits less places, but it hits more in the future, I think, to project out. That's one board member's opinion.
So just to confirm, I'm understanding things correctly. So if there was a chance of the county coming up with additional funding and future phases of BEAD, we should be going towards option 1, because option 2 would be putting fiber out into all of the BEAD eligible areas. Is that correct?
Option 2, no, nothing that we're proposing here is any BEAD eligible areas.
Either 1 or 2.
Neither 1 nor 2. The difference is that option 1 is focused on areas near our phase 1 backbone. And option 2 is really focused on areas far from our phase 1 backbone. And there's an overlap. The kind of the yellow dots are an overlap between those two projects. The reason to focus on things that are near the phase 1 backbone is that's the biggest bang for your buck in terms of number of people that you hook up. The counter argument is focus far away and build the additional backbone that you need, and then, you know, nickel and dime that additional build out as you're able to over the next few years.
So if we had a crystal ball and we could see, oh, the county will come up with an extra 2 to 3 million, the state will release new BEAD funding, we'll have another 8 to 12 million. And you know that now, which option do you think makes the most sense, 1 or 2?
Well, I guess I do both. You mean which one do I do first?
Which one would you say we should do right here, right now?
I don't know. I really like them both. I'm no good. I was really, Tim, by the way, you're getting your money's worth, Tim. He pushed us on this a little bit. Phase 1 was what we came up with first, and I thought it was really good. And he kind of frowned. He said my baby didn't look quite as beautiful as I thought it did. And he said, you know, what about this and what about that? And, you know, give me another option that focuses not just on, you know, what you've already been working on. And that opened up our thinking. And I honestly think they're both really good options. If I was able to strongly advocate for one, I would be, and I can't really. So to me, it doesn't, the goal is to get both of the things done. With my own corporate money, it is easier to build out laterals than it is to build out backbone. We don't build backbone in the same way that we do. we don't, with our own funds, build backbone that is as robust as the backbone that we build with grant funds. And that's, you know, one of the realities of being a small business. It's one of the nice things about being a small business in almost every area except big infrastructure. So I guess I would probably lean towards option 2, because I know that we would not be able to do what we're planning with that. It would be harder to do that. It's my
Thank you.
very minor feedback.
There we go. So you mentioned with option 2, which is where I've been leaning as well, that you think that most of the county then would be in touch without much more backbone going in. As I look at this, I see a bit of a hole up in the northeast part of the county with your backbone. And so I'm curious about how you tackle that if we did go with option 2, kind of if you're projecting towards the future.
Sure. So first of all, I really don't think about the RDOF areas. So if you're including the RDOF areas in that, then my answer maybe is that we still need a little bit of a spur up there. Probably what we would do is we would connect the phase 1 backbone you see comes right up to the edge of the purple area. We would probably bring that up and over to connect with the orange backbone with the red dots along it. That's probably what we would do in building out the RDOF areas, but the greenish, so you can go off a backbone a few miles based on the light levels that you need to do this kind of thing. And so basically all of that teal area in the northern portion is within reach of that backbone. And similarly in the southern area, most of the teal area is within reach of the backbone that would exist with phase 1 and with BEAD. In the lower left-hand corner, there's a section that we would probably build a loop to serve. Mm-hmm.
Are there any other questions for Peter? I'm terrible. It's been a rough night so far.
No questions, just a comment for someone who is not very familiar with the county. It'd be great if you guys could, for the future, overlay like the city names onto the map, because I kept trying to pull up a map with the actual names and looking at them here to see exactly what areas we were talking about. So just a comment on that. And I will likely be the oddball here tonight, but I will probably be leaning towards option 1, just because it covers more premises and allows us to use an additional 600,000 in funding that I assume we would just lose if we went with option 2. Is that correct?
Yeah, or it would
lose
have to
it.
come as we build out other premises, other areas. It would not be part of the project. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Anyone else have anything? Jeff, Stephanie, you've been awful quiet tonight. Any thoughts?
A lot of the questions were already answered that I had for me, and thanks for pointing that out, because looking at the map too, I'm trying to figure out what cities and towns will this, benefit. So I'm in agreement with that.
Yeah, as far as cities and towns, for the most part, it's not going to hit any cities or towns, even villages. It'll basically be avoiding. But geographically, Champaign-Urbana is that big empty spot in the middle, and Mahomet is up there. Rantoul is up at there, and was that Fisher? Yeah. But all of this work that we're doing is basically outside of those areas. Mm-hmm.
Mike next. Yeah, I think if you roll back to when we first knew we would have this money, when the Farm Bureau first came to us, the word rural was in what we were doing, rural broadband. So in particular, it's not headed, you know, for the big population areas on purpose because other people are working on that or have done it. We did direct some other funds to do things with the, you know, housing authority and stuff. And my goal always as a former way out on the had to stand outside to use my cell phone kind of person where I lived, has been and is still in favor of pushing this out like that. You said a very key thing when you talked about it, that the kind of backbone you would put in is different if you're doing it yourselves versus grant money. And I think, you know, the intent of this grant money was to facilitate connecting people in the rural areas to broadband. And I think the potential of getting the backbone in and building off of that later organically or through neighborhood grants or, you know, we don't know what's coming down the line, would benefit from that better backbone. It's nice to hit as many places as possible. But I think if you look at sort of where those places are, they might find a way to be hit because they're close to a good backbone now. So it's much more attractive for another, as you said, sometimes someone else comes in and wants to do something. They don't have to put that expensive backbone in. If we don't get some more backbone up into that other area, I don't think it's ever going to go up there. You know, they'll wind up on some fixed wireless thing or something, and we don't want that, right, Mike? We don't want that. So, which is why I, you know, reading this and reading it before the meeting and then listening to you tonight, I keep rolling over to, you know, it may be less houses, but it has more potential future houses. Should we be able to scrape up some money, I think it would be better spent. You know, we'd be able to direct it to the things we sort of don't do with phase one now. Later on, and get a bigger bang out of that potential of future funding, because now we've got some more backbone out there. These laterals are less expensive, and we could maybe hit more than we hoped for in the future, or we take a little bit off that timeline. Either one makes it attractive to me.
Peter, am I right? There's roughly $600,000 difference between option one and option two.
Yeah.
Because I think that confuses people and clutters the thinking. Why not add some, I wouldn't say random, but add a couple of hundred more homes or 50 more homes, whatever it takes to make the numbers come out the same. So we're not making a decision where the financial numbers make any difference. It wouldn't be a whole area. It might be ugly, but another 100 homes is another 100 homes.
Yeah, I tried. Basically, every home that I add increases the cost more, like increases the cost per home more by so if you look at the numbers, it's about, we're paying at about what was it, 1.75 in option two.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think that's right. I don't have that right.
Yeah. So that's about a third. So we're putting in this model about a 25% cost. So if we add a home, you can imagine that home is going to cost roughly $10,000, and we're going to put in 2,500 of that. And so the idea of adding extra homes to get up to that number, that blows the budget, basically.
Okay.
And I tried to tweak the costs for the mileage and that kind of thing, but I know myself well enough that I will do that until I have bankrupted myself. And that's not good for anybody in this case.
So the county's money is the same in option one and option two?
Yes.
You're
Yes.
totally spending the ARPA funds that have been allocated and earmarked for this.
Correct. And we're matching a particular amount per home based on the fact that we have a particular amount that we can expect them to pay
Got-
per home. And we can justify that to a bank, basically.
Gotcha. Okay.
And if what I really wanted to do was that little purple sliver up below the teal. It irks me that that's just going to be sitting out there uncovered right next to, like, I imagine that will be frustrating to them. And so I tried pretty hard to put those in, but I couldn't. So that's how I know that I can't add more homes.
Okay. We think alike.
Yeah.
That's dangerous. I'm done.
And one of my questions is answered, so I won't ask that one again. So I won't ask it at all. What is the timeline for phase 2A? Is at the end of 25 or 26?
Phase 2A is probably end of 26. Certainly the ARPA funds will be spent within that time frame, somewhere between 25 and 26. Our goal is to move directly from phase 1 with this, ideally the same contractors, even if they're working out well, into phase 2A. And so that would put certainly the backbone construction done in 26 and most of a good chunk of the laterals, but it may go into 27, which we would need to make sure that we're done with the ARPA funds before that.
So notwithstanding that maybe more people might be served in the near term with option 1, I like option 2 because of the potential future capability that's installed that can be tapped into sometime in the future. Well, my preference is option number 2.
Anyone have any last thoughts? Okay, with that, I think, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong or has a better idea, perhaps if we just go through and say which option we prefer and go from there as a formal vote. That work for everyone? Let me find a pen so I can make sure I write them down. Clean piece of paper. Stephanie, how about we start on your side?
Option 2.
Mike,
Option 2.
Option 2.
Option 1.
Option 2.
and I am option 2 as well. So option 2 takes it, and that would be the task force recommendation to the board. Is there anything else we need to cover before that takes care of our new business?
Yep, one question.
Oh, yep. Go ahead, Jeff.
Who presents this to the board?
Sorry. It's on the board agenda as a recommendation on there already, but it doesn't actually require a vote because you guys just thumbs up those ARPA decisions. Yes, it's under the ARPA section, and it'll be brought up when Kathy is doing her whole update.
Okay, thanks.
So if you want to bring up the whole recommendation.
If any of our county board members would want to speak up, I would certainly appreciate it because my board's worried about hazard pay if I come to county board meetings too often. So, hey, Jeff is volunteer.
Hi, Jeff Wilson here on the mic. We'll go ahead and introduce it at the ARPA section on the county board.
We thank you for your volunteerism, Jeff. Next meeting, kind of want to hold on that until we need to have one, if that's okay with everyone. I do have one thing to report. I'll be going on maternity leave in May. So come then, someone else is going to have to sit in the chair seat if we need it. So just as an FYI for all of you on that one, I think that's about the only thing I have that could impact things. So come May, I'm taking 12 weeks off. And if you call my cell phone, the world better be burning down. So with that, if there's no other business brought forward, we'll adjourn. So thank you everyone for your evening. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.